Brent Venables exudes confidence at SEC Media Days.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. Live from SEC Media Days is Jay Smith. You can follow him on Twitter at Unfair Sports. And Jay, Brent Venables took to the podium. Also, shout out to all the everydayers here on the Locked On Podcast Network, making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Brent Venables at the podium, introducing himself to the SEC media for the very first time. Jackson Arnold, Billy Bowman, Danny Stutzman also had their opportunities to speak with the media as well. Jay, what was one of the biggest takeaways that you had watching Brent Venables at the podium at SEC Media Days?
I mean, it's right here on the rundown. It's the confidence, right? The beauty of what Venables did, it felt different. Like, it felt like he was a CEO. It felt like he was the guy that was just running things. I didn't feel any nerves. I didn't feel like he was being a coordinator. It really felt like he was in that CEO role, and he was really just taking it all in, right? He spoke with confidence. He explained Oklahoma's planning, what they're trying to do. He wasn't his typical long-windedness, except for when I asked a question I probably shouldn't have asked, but I digress on that. He really felt like he was in control, and that's something that we all want to see, especially going into the season.
Yeah, that's kind of what I took from him as well. You know, Oklahoma is running into the SEC. Like, they're not running away from trouble. They're not ignorant to the challenges either that the SEC faces. He spoke on a number of occasions about conversations he's had with Nick Saban about how you have to be consistent week to week. That was part of the long-winded answer that he gave you as part of your question. But this is a guy that he believes in the process and believes in what they've done to this point to get the program ready to go. And they've done it over the last 3 years, 3 top 10 recruiting cycles. They've added big-time players in the transfer portal this offseason as well. You know, you can go back to even last offseason when they added Dejon Terry and what that did for their defensive front. That was huge. This offseason, they added Deion Burks and Dominic Williams. Again, adding big-time players that are going to be big-time for the Oklahoma Sooners this year. It's all part of the let's get ready to go and run into the SEC. They're not going to take a backseat to anybody. Brent Venables has said that for years. Oklahoma takes a backseat to nobody, and he truly believes that. And when he speaks confidently, it's because Oklahoma has had so much success over the course of college football history. How can you not speak confidently?
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a few media members that have this weird notion that Oklahoma does have a little bit of a fear going into the SEC. One person asked the question, and this kind of baffled me. They asked how Oklahoma feels or is going to react to having to compete in recruiting against like Texas A&M and Arkansas because they're states that are bordering them and all of that. And Brent Venables looked at them like, do you think we don't compete with them today about recruits? Technically we got like 2 of the top players out of Arkansas this year, this cycle, right? And we've got some of the top players out of Texas. Like, this is not something that's new. We got players out of Florida, dude. Eddie Pierre, EPL is from Florida, right? Lewis Carter, Florida. Danny Stutzman, Florida. So we've been going after players coast to coast for a long time. And I thought that was a very interesting question because it tells me, it shows me how insulated a lot of media members are in the SEC, right? They're literally SEC and only SEC, and they don't realize, even in recruiting battles, that Oklahoma has been battling with SEC schools for years for players because our goal is to be the best, not just be good in the Big 12.
Yeah, and they're going to not win all of them. But that's
right.
The nature of the game. When you're going up against Georgia and Bama and Clemson and Florida State and Texas A&M in these big-time recruiting battles, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. That's just the nature of the business. But you're going to be in them. And Oklahoma is regularly in these recruiting battles, even if they're not winning them. We forgot to mention at LSU. So Oklahoma is always going to recruit, but now they're getting a bit of a bump actually because they're joining the SEC, because of the SEC's long run of success of putting players into the NFL. What was it, the 18th year in a row in which the SEC had the most NFL draft picks?
Yeah.
Recruits take notice of that. High school coaches take notice of that. So Oklahoma was already kind of recruiting at a pretty good level prior to going into the SEC. Again, Brent Venables rebuilt the class that fell apart after Lincoln Riley left, rebuilt that into the number 8 class in the cycle to play in the Big 12 for 2 more seasons. And then in the 2023 cycle, created a top 10 class again, arguably the best class that they've had, especially on the defensive side of the ball over the last decade or more. When you add, PJ Adebawore and Peyton Bowen amongst a number of really, really talented blue chip prospects, and you get a 5-star quarterback out of Texas and Jackson Arnold. So this is a program that's going to be able to recruit. That's
you got a 5-star every cycle. That's the crazy part too, right?
And they look like they're heading towards another top 10 class. And we've talked about it a couple of different times on this show. Over the last 3 cycles, only 4 teams have recruited better than Oklahoma. That's Georgia, SEC school, Bama, SEC school, Ohio State, Big Ten, and then Texas. So you're already recruiting amongst some of the best programs in the country, even without having that SEC patch on your chest. And now you're going to get a bump because of it.
Yeah, and some of the conversations here, it does seem like there's a lot of insulation in the SEC, but the good thing is they're going to find out about us, right? They're going to mess around and they're going to find out. And it's going to be one of those, it's not going to be a shock to some. They're going to be like, wait, they are good. And then others are going to be like, wait, they're good? So for the most part, a lot of the media members that I've talked to here, they understand the rich tradition of Oklahoma. Now, of course, I'm getting a lot of pushback of this isn't the Big 12. You can't just do the things you used to do. No, we don't expect that, but we do expect to find a way to get to the top because all it takes is one thing: continuous top 5 recruiting classes and then execution on the field. If you do both of those, guess what? That's how Georgia and Alabama exist. And then when LSU decides they want to show up every once in a while, they get top recruiting classes and then they execute. That's the one thing, unfortunately, Texas didn't do. They didn't always execute. They did last season. That's why they got a Big 12 championship for the first time in a long time. So for them, if they continue to execute, they're going to compete. And then what are SEC schools going to say at that point? We've got guys in 300-pounders. Right? We got a lot of 300-pounders. We got a lot of 295-pounders on the defensive side and 300-pounders on the offensive side. We've got 360 and 340-pound linebackers. We've got those spots just like they do. It's not that when you compare the rosters, it's a lot of them begin to get shocked. They're like, wow, didn't realize you actually had players that size. Yeah, we weren't playing when we said we were coming to the SEC. Brent Venables said that last year. We need to get SEC ready this year, not next year, this year. And so you started to see that in the results of the recruiting, just like you said, maintaining that type of recruiting and recruiting those types of players. Yeah, I know I asked Venables that question around his defense because I knew that I had a feeling he was going to go long, but I didn't think it was going that long. I think it was like 5 minutes straight. But the point was, you've had elite defenses at every level in the Big 12 when the Big 12 was the juggernaut of college football, right? You had it then. You had it at Clemson and played at 3 national championships, 1-2. How do you feel about this one? And so for him, it's we got to still execute, right? We still got to execute. And the same thing we keep saying over and over. If they execute, we will have one of the top defenses in college football.
He is speaking with confidence, but he's also understanding that there's work to do. And I think keeping that message out in front of his team is the important part while also promoting this level of confidence to the rest of the conference. Like, you're not going to come in and just expect to push over Oklahoma just because we're the new kid. No. You're not going to bully us. Watch out, because we might be the bully here. We're going to have more SEC Media Day takeaways from Brent Venables' press conferences, what Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, Jackson Arnold had to say throughout the rest of the week. But Venables dropped a really interesting injury update, and we'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Right now, FanDuel still has the Oklahoma Sooners sitting at 7.5 on the over-under. Apparently, that was not enough confidence being exuded by Brent Venables at SEC Media Days. Got to get that number. If you're a betting man, I mean, that's 7.5. That's looking pretty nice. definitely taking the over on that. We love sports. We love them so much that we don't want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get to the middle of summer, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen. For your second listen, go check out Locked On SEC with our guy, Chris Gordy, just breaking down everything that's happened this week at SEC Media Days. Hey, go also check out my man, Jonzo Ball, over at Locked On Longhorns as well. That's my dude over there. If you've caught any of our crossovers over the years, you know my man, Jonathan Davis. He is going to bring you the Texas facts with some reasonable Texas perspective. So go check out Locked On Longhorns as well. But Jay, we got some injury updates from Brent Venables prior to taking the podium. This comes from George Stoya of On3 and Sooner Scoop. Several guys that are going to be fully ready. Let's talk through some of those guys first, because that will impact some camp battles when fall ball begins. Gentry Williams, he's going to be back. I think both you and I expect when he's healthy, he's going to be your starter over at that left cornerback spot. This one's very interesting. Gary and Hatchett, the interior offensive lineman, how might he factor into the offensive line competition come fall ball?
Yeah, he came in, transferred from Washington, and he was a key component on that Joe Moore award-winning line. Like, he was a key piece. He rotated in around, and he got hurt like right before the national championship, and so he didn't get to play. And he's been out, ever since. And so we saw him running in some, propaganda that the Sooner account popped up and showed the big men running around, and he's like, okay, that knee looks like it's better because that's what was hurt. And it appears that he's fully released. Venables mentioned that by June that they expected him back to be at full health, and now he's released. Now, with that being said, there's a good chance he's going to battle for that left guard spot. Like, I'm still pretty high on Heath Uzeta right now. I think that him being in the system for as long as he has is going to help him get a little bit of a leg up with Coach Bill Beatonbaugh and getting a run at that left guard. But if Gary and Hatchett is ready, with that experience, there's a good chance he could lead the way, with Uzeta being his first rotation on that line. And that's something you want, right? You're going to need to have guys. You don't want to have the highest snaps in college football again, like we did last year with certain players. You want to be able to rotate and everybody have half as much, because if you do have the opportunity to make a big playoff run, you're going to play about 17 games. You need the bodies. And with that, good thing to have Hatchett back healthy.
That's right. As many good players as you can have up front, the better. Another fully released for fall ball, Casey Thompson, a guy that's factoring in at the backup quarterback spot. What do we expect out of Casey Thompson this year?
Yeah, I anticipate him being back there as a leader, more so kind of like a coach, as a quarterback, right? Because Casey's seen a lot, played at Texas, played at Nebraska, played at FAU. So he's done a lot of stuff over the last few years. And so because of that, Oklahoma has been needing to have an additional, veteran presence. Let's put it that way. And he does, because Jackson Arnold is a true sophomore. And that's the question that everybody has. I've had that question asked me by numerous SEC schools on some of the hits that I've done is, your quarterback's young. What are you going to do about your quarterback? Blah, blah, blah. Well, we've got Casey, and I think Casey can do a really good job of stepping in when needed, but he doesn't need to take over. That's the beauty of it. It'll be all on Jackson Arnold, but having a veteran behind him to help with the playbook and help just being acclimated to the pressures of being, especially in the SEC, having a veteran be able to talk about all the defense they've seen will be able to help a lot.
It will. And no matter what the season looks like, you've got a veteran that can come in for a stretch if necessary. You've got some really intriguing backup options as well in Michael Hawkins and Brendan Zerbrug that can sling the ball around in their own right too. So that's going to be a really interesting quarterback rotation, backup quarterback rotation, however you want to, portray it. I think in non-conference, there's a good chance you see the younger guys instead of maybe Casey when given the opportunity. But I think they'll want to get him some reps as well. But maybe you want to see more Michael Hawkins, more Brendan Zerbrug, get them that experience.
And the transfer that's from Choctaw. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he's the newest transfer that we recently got at quarterback.
Steele Wassel.
Yeah, Wassel. There you go, Steele Wassel. You may even see him. So that's a good point.
Yeah. Never know. To the wide receiver position, because this is the one that's garnered a lot of attention because of the depth that it has. Well, that depth is still being put to the test. Jalil Farouk, he's kind of in that day-to-day, I would argue. There's not really a designation for him, and they don't use the day-to-day, the doubtful, questionable for practice. Hopefully one day we'll get to that like they do in the NFL. But Jalil Farouk nursing a foot injury. We know with wide receivers, the feet are so important. When you start losing those feet, you start losing a lot of your explosiveness in and out of your breaks, things like that. So we'll see what his availability is going to be like when it comes to fall ball. I expect that he'll probably be ready to go by SEC play, fully ready to go, not having to, watch what he does in practice, but it's going to be interesting there. And then Angelo Anthony, not quite ready to go yet. They expect him ready by the end of fall camp, but I mean, it's not until October that he's going to be a year out from the ACL injury, which is the general timeline for that recovery. But what does that mean for the wide receiver group moving forward, Jay?
Yeah, you kind of lose a little bit of the veteran presence that you were hoping to have in there. But the good thing is you've got some other players that have played. This is a great opportunity for Jaden Gibson to get out there and play some more, along with, of course, Deion Burks is going to be playing and Nick Anderson. So with those three, that's kind of the ones leading the way. Brennan Thompson is going to be the next one, of course. He'll be able to get the opportunity to play a lot more now, as long as he's healthy, because that's kind of been his problem even at Texas and at Oklahoma, is just staying healthy. He gets back healthy, he's going to definitely be out there showing out. And so between those guys, right, that's kind of the thing that you're hoping that you get from, not having Angelo Anthony and Jalil Farouk playing, is to be able to get those younger guys playing. And if they get out there and play, then get that experience you need, especially in the non-con. You really want them to play non-con, because then whenever you go up against Tennessee, you can say, all right, bring the veterans in as well and make sure everybody's experienced. You can do a lot more subbing and rotations.
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for Jaden Gibson, who showed out in limited opportunities as Oklahoma's fifth, then fourth wide receiver in the 2023 season. Again, 14 catches, 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards, averaged more than 23 yards per reception. The dude just knows how to make plays. So getting him some full extended playing time in the first 3 games of the season, that's going to be really exciting to see what he's able to do with 50, 60 snaps a game, maybe 5, 6 targets a game. I'm really excited to see what he's going to be capable of with a full complement of snaps, because we know Nick Anderson, he's going to make plays for you all over the passing game, and he'll probably start whether Angelo Anthony was ready to go week 1 or Jalil Farouk was ready to go week 1. I really feel like Nick Anderson had earned that starting spot. There was just competition at the other spot. So it's going to be fascinating to see this. But then you still got Deion Burks. You may not have the veteran presences, but you got a Deion Burks who's played a lot of college football. And the 3 of them create a really, really dynamic group that you can do a lot of things with. I think Brennan Thompson also stands to benefit from this. He's felt a lot of times as a guy lost in the shuffle. Yeah. You see the speed, you see the ability, the quickness off the line of scrimmage, but because of the depth, it's just hard to break through and work your way up the depth chart. But I think this creates a really, really nice opportunity for him, and even for Jaquays Pettaway. Pettaway. Pettaway probably lines up more in the slot, getting more of those slot snaps, but Thompson is going to get more opportunities on the outside without Jalil Farouk. So a very interesting fall ball situation. I cannot wait. Brent Venables said late July, that's when they're going to get going. So we're going to start seeing these camp battles unfold over the next 6 weeks as we get ready for Temple, and then in earnest get ready for that debut season in the SEC. We got a little bit of clarification on horns down. It's not a penalty. We'll talk about that next, coming up here on Locked On Sooners. So, horns down, a topic of discussion no matter what time of the year it is, which conference you're in, who is at the podium, who's doing the scrum on the side. Well, the head of officiating for the SEC, Mr. McDade, John McDade, it is, had this to say: if an opponent of Texas were to score a touchdown and in celebration with their teammates and going back up the sideline, they're giving the signal. That's not an issue. We have that already in the Southeastern Conference. We have teams that have things like the Gator Chomp or things like the Shark Fin, the land shark over there at Ole Miss, for the defense where that thing has been done. And over the years, we've evaluated it. Is it taunting? Here's what taunting is. Is it taunting? Is it making a travesty of the game? Is it otherwise affecting our ability to manage the game? And if the answer is no, then it's not a foul. Now, if he tackles a player, stands right over them and gives it a horns down, now we've got taunting, and that would be unsportsmanlike conduct. If you're Ethan Downs and you sack Quinn Ewers and you stand over them and yell in their face, probably that should have been taunting. But if you do that and you drop a horns down, it's definitely going to be taunting, even in the SEC. So, again, I've seen stuff out there that horns down is going to be a penalty. It's not always going to be a penalty. You could score a touchdown in the end zone, be there with Oklahoma fans and dropping a horns down. And I don't think that that's going to be a penalty because it's not going to be necessarily directed at a Texas fan. What's your take, Jay?
Oh yeah, I'm glad that it was clarified, and not to give props to or excuse anything for Texas, I guess you could say. The Longhorns weren't telling them that they didn't want this to happen, right? Technically, right? It was more of we use it as a taunt. Everybody does. And the beauty of it is that, the fact that we've got it clarified that as long as you're not doing it in their face, no one cares. We're not going to call anything on you. But guess what? Every team's going to do it in their face. And they're going to do it at them as much as possible. And they're going to make it a big thing. Now, the thing that annoyed me the most about media days was that every SEC media person felt the need to ask constantly, every OU player, Venables, do they think that horns down should be a penalty? No one cares. You guys stop talking about it. We're tired of hearing about it. Why? Because we don't care. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We don't care if it's a penalty or not. It's going to be done because we're going to taunt the heck out of our rival. For us, we're going to do that. Now, the problem for Texas is every SEC school is going to do it too. And regardless of a penalty or not, it's going to happen. And so now that it's clarified that as long as you do it on the sidelines or you're not doing it in somebody's face and making the game a travesty, guess what? They're going to do it on the sideline. Every interception, every fumble recovery, every sack, they're going to turn around, boom, toss it up. So because that's going to happen, well, that's just kind of how things go.
Yeah, and I liked Billy Bowman's response. It was, if you think it should be a penalty, it's kind of soft. And Billy, he did not mince words, man. He won a fantastic interview, but he was really honest and forthright. Like, he was not shy about some of those things. And it's this constant thing that comes up. But if you're so concerned about whether horns down is a penalty or not, you're missing really what is the purpose of all of it. Throwing the horns up, throwing the horns down, throwing the guns, whether you're the Texas Tech guns or the Oklahoma State Cowboys guns, where there's only one, or the OU, the Gator, whatever it is, the tomahawk chop, whatever it is, it's all about the pageantry and the beauty and the passion and the energy of college football, which is what makes college football the best sport in North America. Because you have this energy, you have this in rivalries, you have this vitriol, you have this intensity, and you want that a part of your game. As much as, they try to remove the unsportsmanlike conducts and the taunting and stuff like that, you still want to have as much of that in your game as possible. And that's why the SEC allowing a little bit of gray area is what makes the conference kind of forward thinking and keeps them at the forefront of the college football discussion, is because they're not trying to eliminate some of the passion and the energy and the intensity that comes with it. This is where the Big 12 really dropped the ball, as opposed to saying, you know what, there are times when it might be okay. They're like, nah, never. We can never do this. This is the most obscene and offensive hand gesture. We can never have it happen. No, there are times when taunting is not taunting, and there are times when taunting is very clearly taunting. And I get it. You want to get it out of the game. At the same time, you look at the baseball diamond and the bat flips that we're seeing in college baseball right now, and we're concerned about a horns down. Come on. Come on.
Yes, and I get trying to control the level of disrespect that happens sometimes in the game. And you level a dude, you stand on top of him and act like you're gonna pee on him or something like that. I totally understand eliminating that type of taunting, right? Because there's a level of disrespect you just don't want to cross that far of a line, right? So I get that, but outside of that, dude, make it fair game. Just as long as you're not in somebody's face, it doesn't matter. In which that's what the SEC is saying. The Big 12 didn't want to have, I guess, the balls to be able to say that same thing and be like, okay, just as long as you're not in somebody's face, you're fine. No, they just want to eliminate and outlaw it completely, which is ridiculous. And I'm also mad at college football for not putting that gesture in the game, especially during Red River. Because if there's one time that it needs to happen at Red River. I understand why they can't put it universally in the game, because you'd have to code it for every single team in the game just in case they play Texas. And it can only happen if Texas is playing, because it's stupid if you do it when Texas ain't playing. So I get that part. But you should have just threw that as an exclusive piece to the Red River game. That would have been so much fun. But I understand it's probably too much work on the coding side, but I digress. The bigger thing here is that legislating out the line when it comes to being disrespectful, I get. But besides that, let the kids be kids and let the passion show.
Yeah, let's have some fun. Let's just have some fun. This is college football. It's fun, and every SEC team is going to look for the opportunity to drop that horns down, because Texas is the brand that everybody hears about all the time, nonstop, ad nauseum. Again, like my Dallas Cowboys, getting all this airtime for no reason. But SEC teams are going to be looking forward to potentially trying to put them in their place with little horns down. So we'll see how that goes, though, this season. Any other kind of last, parting shots for today's episode? Any other takeaways that you had? Something that stood out?
Yeah, Eli Drinkwitz for Missouri, the head coach there, made a statement that gave everybody enough little material to talk about. He talked about Caden Green, right? And a lot of Sooner fans, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about and why. Some of you are probably a little perturbed, especially if you look at the X-Bird right now. A bunch of people are just annoyed with that. And he talked about, Caden Green coming there. He hit the portal and they reached out, and it was because of their prior relationship that they felt like they had an opportunity, but they didn't know. Then they got Williams Nwaneri, so they thought there may have been a good chance to bring them all together. And they won his bid. They won him as a recruit, as a transfer, and they were super excited about it. But the thing that jumped out the most was twofold. One, he said he has STI, which is like strength, something else, and intensity. It's like, that's weird. You said he has an STI. That's not something that we should probably talk about here on the national stage, but whatever, dude. Whatever floats your boat.
That's not going to get taken out of context at all.
At all, right. And it's literally going through out of context on social media right now. Yeah. But the one thing he did say that kind of perturbed, this is what perturbed most Sooner fans, is that Caden Green was there and he was working as left tackle. Well, they brought in Marcus Bryant from SMU, and he said Marcus is working at left tackle and Caden is moving to left guard. Wasn't the reason why Caden Green left was kind of something about him wanting to play tackle and not guard? But now he's playing guard again? That is interesting. And so if you see people throwing a fit on social media, that's exactly why about Caden Green. It's probably why Caden Green is also taking all of his tweets and locked who can respond to them, because that's kind of the reason why. It's like, but dude, you could have done that here. We would have made it even better for you, right? Actually, he'd be probably the right tackle right now if he was here at Oklahoma. He'd be left tackle protecting the blind side while Sexton would be on the right. He would be starting right now, but he decided he wanted to go home. That's fine. Everybody can make their own choices. And sometimes it's okay to let people make mistakes and let people make bad choices. We'll see what it turns out for him. But the fact that he's now left guard, just like he was here, pretty annoying to a lot of people.
Yeah. And, he has the opportunity to be really, really good. He's a really, really good player.
Very.
You just hate sometimes the misunderstandings, whatever happened with Oklahoma and Caden Green, all that relationship to lead to this, that it couldn't have been repaired somehow. And you know what? Some of that's on Oklahoma. Some of that's also on him and his family too. So we'll see how it all goes. But I know that Oklahoma is going to be looking to run and blitz over that left side of the offensive line quite a bit when the Sooners get to Columbia and really put Caden Green to the test. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Also, go check out the Locked On Sooners Insider Program by texting SEC 2024 to 405-817-6711 to get 25% off your first month. That's where you can ask Jay and myself direct questions that, hey, we will also read on the show. We'll do special Q&As that are just for you, the members of the Locked On Sooners Insider Program. So again, text SEC 2024 to 405-817-6711 to get 25% off your first month. Make sure you're following Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts and wherever you are on social medias, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and subscribe to the show. Again, wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay on Twitter at Unfair Sports, myself at John9Williams. But until next time, he's Jay. I'm John. Boomer.
Sooner.